the neutrons, because if the neutrons are moving too fast, they kind of bounce off the nucleus, and if they're going too slow, they don't have enough energy to cut the nucleus in half. So a moderator is something that moderates the speed of the neutrons so that it's the right speed. And then the other thing you need to know is control rods. Control rods absorb the excess neutrons so you don't get an expanding, they control the reaction, right? You don't want an expanding chain reaction because that would be bad news. I don't remember if that, so I know moderator and control rods are on the test, or for sure one of those. I don't think critical mass is, but it's good to talk about, because to me critical mass sounds like something that's going to be extreme or bad or cause a bomb, and it isn't. It's just the minimum amount you need to get the reaction to work. The other thing you have to know, because we're Canadians, is what does the CANDU reactor stand for? CANDU is our reactor, CAN is Canada, D stands for deuterium, and U stands for uranium. And what deuterium is it's water, but the hydrogens, instead of having one proton and no neutrons, have an extra neutron in it. So there's an extra particle, a non-charged particle in the nucleus, which makes that, it makes it heavier. So it's called heavy water. And so in a very general sense, you have these control rods sitting there in the fuel, and you have this water floating around. And why the Canadian reactor is so good is that the heavy water is the thing that adjusts the speed, right? The moderator. So if things start to get out of control, there's a little valve and the water gets drained, and now there's just air, and the neutrons can't go the correct speed, so there is no reaction. Drain the water, stop the reactor. Very simple, very safe. So that's the premise of the CANDU reactor. And again, what's the energy in a reactor? It's MC squared, so it's a giant amount. Here is kind of a picture of inside a reactor where you've got the fuel, the control rods, the fuel, and then there's water. And you can see if you just drain the water, now you can't get anything happening. So that's a general idea. And then what happens is once that makes the energy or whatever, then it runs a turbine, which creates power. So that's pretty much that. Okay, then now let me just make sure.
There are lots of different ways to produce energy. Nuclear power is one of these choices. It is low carbon and reliable. Here's how it works. There's this thing called an atom. Atoms are the basic building blocks of everyday objects. A desk, the air, and even you are made up of atoms. And reliable. Here's how it works. There's this thing called an atom. Atoms are the basic building blocks of everyday objects. A desk, the air, and even you are made up of atoms. Nuclear energy is the energy stored in the nucleus, or center of an atom. To release this energy, power plants split the middle of these atoms into even smaller parts. When they do this, energy is released as heat. This heat is used to boil water to make steam, like a giant kettle. The steam spins a huge turbine that works a generator. The generator makes electricity. Afterwards, the steam cools down and turns back into water so it can be used again. After the energy is created at a nuclear plant, like this one being built by Horizon Nuclear Power in North Wales, it moves through wires to homes and plugs, to the things we use every day. By using nuclear energy as part of our energy mix, we can help create a brighter future for us all to live in.
That's assuming there's no disasters. So, now, the disasters thing. Fascinating but terrible at the same time. A long time ago there was a plant called Chernobyl, and if you Google it, it's a sickening story where it went out of control, and it wasn't a CANDU reactor, so they couldn't stop it easily, so it went crazy, and basically there's a town that's completely a ghost town, because you can't go there because it's so radioactive. Well, you can go there dressed in a suit and the Geiger counter and stuff. They had to evacuate the entire town. And in the process, a whole bunch of people have died with cancer or whatever. And it was so severe that for, like, I think over a decade, they did a special program for children that were born even after, because their mothers might have been irradiated and carrying some radiation in their body. They brought kids over to places like Canada for the summer so that they could spend a whole summer eating clean food and just being healthy and having a good immune system and, you know, growing properly. And so that's a terrible one. You can Google and go, oh, that didn't work very well. There's
there's like, I've seen like a couple of days ago, they're like starting to like, there's like areas open for tourists now.
Yeah, it's a tourist thing.
Yeah, and like life has been like coming back, so they've noticed that like plants are becoming more like not
It's true, but the radiation levels last for something like 5,000 years. So even if the plants are growing, you're going to be eating carrots that are radioactive. That's not very cool, right? So that's right. It's an interesting, like, it's interesting as a science thing. It's terrible as an ecological and a human thing. So that's one thing. Another thing that's, again, to me, fascinating but mortifying at the same time is when nuclear power goes out of control, they become nuclear bombs. And that's what happened at the end of World War II. There was a race for developing nuclear bombs, and the States won that race and won the war. But in doing that, a couple of things happened. First, they were testing their nuclear bombs in the desert, thinking that should be okay, not understanding that when they were doing their tests that they were